In the fog-draped halls of the Louvre, where torches cast long, dancing shadows, France was tearing itself apart. Religious wars, courtly betrayals, and a constant thirst for power left the kingdom bleeding. And at the center of this maelstrom stood a woman in black silk, her gaze as cold and sharp as a dagger's edge. Her name was Catherine de Medici. History remembers her with a divided heart. To some, she was a political mastermind, a devoted mother maneuvering through a treacherous world to protect her children. To others, she was the Serpent Queen, the Black Queen of France, a puppet master who ruled from the shadows, whose whispers carried the scent of poison, and who could turn a royal wedding into a nationwide massacre. So, was she a monster or a misunderstood matriarch? Let's unravel the story of the woman who held France in her hands. Catherine was born in 1519, a daughter of the legendary Medici family of Florence. You'd think being born into a line of bankers who funded popes and kings would guarantee a life of safety. You'd be wrong. Power was no shield for the infant Catherine. Her parents died within a month of her birth, leaving her an orphan, a pawn in a very dangerous game. By the time she was 8, political upheaval saw her taken hostage by rebels in Florence. They threatened her with everything imaginable: death, public humiliation, being locked away in a convent for life. She survived, but the experience forged her. She learned a brutal, core lesson that would define her entire existence. Power is not given. It must be taken and held onto with everything you have. At just 14, she was shipped off to France, married to Henry, the Duke of Orleans, and the future king. A political match, of course, but Catherine, young and hopeful, fell in love with her husband. It was a love that was never returned. Henry's heart was already captured by another woman, the beautiful and influential Diane de Poitiers, a woman 20 years his senior. For a decade, Catherine was the invisible wife, the forgotten queen. She was publicly humiliated by her husband Essafer and privately tormented by her inability to produce an heir, the one duty that could give her value in the French court. The pressure was immense, but then, after 10 long years of uncertainty, she finally gave birth. And not just to one heir, but to 10 children, cementing the Valois dynasty and, more importantly, her own place at the heart of French power. She had done her duty. Now, she would wait for her moment. That moment arrived in 1559, with the crack of a lance. King Henry II was killed in a freak jousting accident, leaving the throne to their frail 15-year-old son, Francis II. His wife, the famous Mary, Queen of Scots, became queen consort. But real power lay with Mary's ambitious uncles. Catherine, the queen mother, was sidelined once again. But she was a master of patience. She watched, and she waited. Just 1 year later, Francis II died. The crown passed to the next son, Charles Nuckin, who was only 10 years old. A child king cannot rule alone. This was Catherine's time. She stepped out of the shadows, not as a grieving mother or dowager queen, but as queen regent of France. For the first time, the realm was truly hers to command. And what a realm it was! France was a kingdom on fire. The nation was fractured by the brutal wars of religion between Catholics and the Protestant Huguenots. Ambitious nobles saw the chaos as an opportunity, plotting in every castle and corridor. Assassins were a constant threat. In this viper's pit, Catherine had one unwavering goal: to protect the throne for her sons and preserve the Valois dynasty. She became a master of statecraft, negotiating with her sworn enemies one day and marrying her children into their families the next. She built a vast network of spies, the infamous Flying Squadron, beautiful women of the court who gathered secrets from the beds of powerful men. Legends grew around her. They said she kept a cabinet of poisons, ready to dispense death as easily as a royal decree. They whispered she consulted astrologers like Nostradamus, using magic and dark arts to foresee the future and crush her rivals. She was building a reputation as a woman not to be crossed. But the darkest chapter of her reign, the event that would forever stain her name, was yet to come. In 1572, Catherine orchestrated what she hoped would be her masterpiece of diplomacy. To heal the religious rift tearing France apart, she arranged a marriage between her Catholic daughter, Marguerite de Valois, and the Protestant prince, Henry of Navarre. The wedding was meant to be a symbol of unity, a grand celebration of peace. It became one of the most infamous atrocities in European history. On the night of August 24th, St. Bartholomew's Day, the wedding bells of Paris turned into a signal for slaughter. Following an assassination attempt on a prominent Protestant leader, Catholic mobs, allegedly with encouragement from figures high in the royal court, began a systematic massacre of the Huguenots who had gathered in the city for the royal wedding. The violence was horrific. The streets of Paris ran red. The massacre spread like wildfire across France, and in the weeks that followed, thousands were killed. The question that echoes through history is, what was Catherine's role? Did she order the massacre, seeing it as a ruthless but necessary move to eliminate her political enemies in one fell swoop? Or was she a terrified mother, cornered by radical Catholic factions, who agreed to the violence out of fear that her own family would be next if she refused? We may never know for sure. But history made its judgment. It was this night that cemented her legacy as the Black Queen. Catherine's life was a long, slow tragedy of watching everything she fought for crumble. She outlived her husband and all but one of her children. She saw 3 of her sons wear the crown of France, Francis II, Charles V, and Henry III, and watched each of them fail to stop the kingdom's descent into chaos. She lived to see France ravaged by plague, endless war, and the betrayals she had spent her life trying to navigate. She died in 1589, at the age of 69, a lonely figure surrounded by enemies and, some say, haunted by regret. Her last son, King Henry III, was assassinated shortly after her death, bringing the Valois dynasty to an end. But in a final, ironic twist of fate, her bloodline did not die out. The Protestant prince she had married to her daughter, Henry of Navarre, survived the massacre and the wars that followed. After converting to Catholicism, he would become King Henry IV of France, founding the new and powerful Bourbon dynasty. Catherine's legacy lived on, just not in the way she had ever intended. So, who was Catherine de Medici? A cold-hearted monster, hungry for power at any cost? Or a pragmatic ruler and a fiercely protective mother, forced to make impossible choices in a world designed by and for men? Perhaps she was all of these things. She was a survivor, a queen, a regent, and a legend, whose shadow still looms large over the history of France. She ruled from behind silk curtains and left a trail of shadows through French history. If Catherine's story intrigued you, there are more queens whose power was as sharp as steel and as silent as poison. Subscribe and step deeper into the forgotten world of queens who ruled the darkness. Thanks for watching.